We are just a little over a week removed from the official end of the college football season, where we saw Ohio State take down Notre Dame in the national championship game. And today I wanted to take a chance to kind of reminisce on the season as a whole, looking back at what this season brought us, looking back at how we did here at the Gridiron Expert, and what was, to me, the craziest college football season we have ever seen, or for some, at least the craziest we've seen since 2007. Because, you look at this season as a whole, from the time it started in week 0 all the way till last week, no one was ever safe. We hear this, saying every year, any given Saturday, anything can happen on any given Saturday. We've kind of coined phrases here at the channel such as assume nothing, throw records out the window. And all of those things were absolutely true in 2024. If I did my math right, and I believe I did, we saw 76 ranked teams lose in the regular season alone. That doesn't include conference championships. That does not include the postseason. 76 ranked teams lost in the regular season. 37 of those came to unranked opponents. That's 48.7%. Nearly half of the ranked teams that lost to unranked opponents. That is an absurd number. We saw tons of great ranked versus ranked matchups, no doubt about that. But the fact that we saw so many teams that weren't ranked, some with losing records, some that weren't even in contention for a playoff spot or a championship spot or anything like that, pulling off massive upsets that really shaped the entire outcome of this season. Just look at some of those notable ones there. Obviously, some of the bigger ones like Northern Illinois taking down number 5 Notre Dame. That happening back in week 2 had, a huge effect on the college football world at the time. Obviously didn't have as much of an impact by the time the season ended. Notre Dame was able to right the ship, won out the rest of the way, getting all the way to the national championship before falling to the Buckeyes. Vanderbilt taking down number 1 Alabama. Shocking upset there where you felt like Vanderbilt was playing well against some of these opponents, couldn't get over the hump. No one thought they'd be able to take down Alabama shortly after the Crimson Tide defeated Georgia, and Vanderbilt just took every single blow, kept fighting back against Alabama. Crimson Tide couldn't get a stop, Vanderbilt getting the job done. And Alabama kind of on the wrong side of a handful of big upsets this year. Obviously losing to Vanderbilt, another game we have on this list. Losing to Oklahoma right there towards the end of the season. Bama ranked number 7, needing a win to get to the college football playoff. They lose to the Sooners. Yes, they beat Auburn, but ultimately left out of the 12-team playoff in favor of SMU. So you see some of these upsets that we saw greatly impacting what happened in the 12-team playoff. We mentioned Oklahoma, Alabama. We mentioned now Kansas taking down both number 6 BYU and number 16 Colorado. Those were significant because it greatly affected the Big 12 playoff race, the Big 12 championship race. It opened the door for a team like Arizona State, who no one saw coming, to get into that championship game. They dismantled Iowa State. They made the college football playoff where arguably they should have defeated Texas in their first game. Got a first-round bye in this year's playoff. But Kansas, Arizona State owes Kansas a little bit for that because of the work they did against the Cougars and the Buffaloes. Syracuse taking down number 6 Miami, ultimately keeping Miami out of not just the college football playoff, but the ACC championship. So they kept them out of the ACC championship game, which means they couldn't have an automatic spot possibly for the playoff. It was the argument going into the year, would it be Alabama, would it be SMU, would it be Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina? Who was going to get one of those couple last spots in the playoff? And Alabama was left out. Miami was left out. Ole Miss was left out. And obviously teams like Arizona State who won their conference, SMU who lost the ACC, but still managed to get in, ultimately got the upper hand. So some of these upsets are just a few. There were so many other massive upsets that we could have talked about. The list could have been a mile long because there were 37 of them just with unranked teams. But those were a handful that greatly impacted the entire landscape and what we saw in the 12-team playoff. And when you look back at the 12-team playoff, kind of recapping that a little bit, I felt like it was a success. Obviously, there were some flaws, some things that needed to be fixed and will get fixed. But I felt like they put the best teams in there. I felt like the committee actually did a somewhat decent job of making sure the right teams were in the field. Doesn't mean that we saw the greatest games. Doesn't mean that we saw the most competitive games. Those first round matchups were all garbage. All the games that were played on campus were absolutely atrocious. A handful of the next week's games were absolutely atrocious. But no one saw Ohio State dismantling Oregon the way they did. No one really saw Notre Dame dismantling Georgia the way we did. We picked the Fighting Irish to beat the Bulldogs in that game, but I don't know if anyone saw it coming the way it did. There were a handful of games in there that maybe didn't go the way we thought they would, but overall, the format itself, the 12-team format is good. They need some tweaking in terms of how the teams are seeded, in terms of who gets first round byes, things like that. And I think that will come. But the layout is great because we ended up seeing a national championship between two teams that would not have made it in the old 4-team format. I don't think Notre Dame would have gotten in. I don't think, obviously, Ohio State would have gotten in, especially after their loss to Michigan in the season finale. Those two teams wouldn't have had a shot to play for a national title under the old format. Instead, they played in one, and Ohio State ultimately getting that win. So I like it. I like the 12-team format. It was the first year of it. Obviously, there's going to be some things that need to be changed, and I think they will take those precautions and those steps going forward. Now, touching on the 12-team playoff a little bit further, we talk about how we like to, on these recaps, we like to look back at how we did here at the channel. You followed us all year long. You've watched our prediction videos. You've watched our analysis. Well, let's go ahead. We're not shy. We're not shy to show our wins. We're not shy to show our losses. So let's take a look at how our 12-team playoff looked back in August, before the season even started. And I will say, we had a lot of big misses. But I will also say, we did a somewhat decent job. Back on my 12-team playoff that I put out back in August, I correctly predicted 7 of the 12 teams that would participate in the college football playoff. Only missed out on a handful of teams. Some of those really, really bad misses, like Florida State, Michigan, Utah, and Kansas State. I had the Wildcats winning the Big 12 back in the preseason, and they did not do that. Florida State obviously went 2-10. Michigan was not nearly as good as we thought they'd be, although they ended the year on a high with wins against Ohio State and Alabama. And then Utah, just injury after injury after injury. Cam Rising never really playing. Did not live up to the expectations that anyone thought they'd have. But so I'll admit, yeah, I missed a handful of games, or a handful of teams pretty bad there. But 7 of the 12 teams we did correctly predict. We correctly predicted Ohio State to make the national championship. We correctly predicted Ohio State and Texas in the semifinals, and we correctly predicted Notre Dame to come in as the number 7 seed. Had the Fighting Irish at 11-1. We predicted them to go 11-1 and had them as the 7 seed. We were off by one seed mark with Georgia. I had Georgia at number 1. In real life, they were number 2. I had Texas at number 6. In real life, they were number 5. But on that right side of the bracket, the left side's garbage. We had Michigan, Alabama facing off over there. We had Oregon not getting a first round bye. We had Kansas State over there. Left side was pretty bad. But the right side, while it wasn't exactly in the correct spots, we did have Ohio State and Notre Dame facing each other in the quarterfinals, and we predicted the Buckeyes to win that game. We had Clemson and Texas facing each other in the quarterfinals. That obviously was a first-round matchup, but we did have the Tigers, who we predicted to win the ACC, and were right on that, playing Texas and predicted Texas to win that game. And then, as we mentioned, the semifinal was correct, Ohio State and Texas, and obviously Ohio State winning that one. So the right side of the bracket, if you're doing like a March Madness style, that quadrant wasn't too bad. Got a decent amount of points there. And hey, predicting over half the field correct, not too shabby considering it was all done back in August. So kind of wild to look at what the expectations were coming into the year, look at what teams met their expectations, what teams failed to reach those expectations, but kind of a fun look back at what our bracket looked like, and obviously already looking forward to doing our 2025 predictions here in a few months. Now, last little thing, of course, we got to see how we did. You followed us all year long. We start our game-by-game predictions for every single team in the preseason. We start those in June. They run through June, July, August, all the way to the start of the season. And our records this year were absolutely phenomenal, doing very, very well on our picks. 458 and 113 in those picks. Those game-by-game picks that you saw us do, we keep up with those. We keep up with whether we were right or wrong on those predictions for every team. 458, 113, that's over 80% on our preseason predictions that we got correct. That's back-to-back years where we have correctly predicted over 80% of these games. Back-to-back years, over 80%. And 458, I believe, is the highest mark we've ever had in terms of wins here at the Gridiron Expert. And so maybe next year we can push for 500, that coveted 500 win mark. Also, based on those game-by-game predictions of every single team that we did back in the preseason, we went 61 out of 134. 61 of those teams, we either correctly predicted their record, right on the money, or were off by just one game. And honestly, considering the year we had, the amount of upsets we had, and the unpredictability each week brought us, I will happily take that mark. That's 45.5% of the teams that we predicted that we were either correct on or, again, off by one game. Some of those teams that we were exactly right on in terms of their record, doesn't mean the exact game, but exactly right: Texas, Notre Dame, Miami, California, Texas Tech, Tulane, Boise State, and plenty more. So some of the big dogs there getting those records exactly right this year, right on the money, such as Texas at 11-1, Notre Dame at 11-1, Miami at 10-2, going on from there. So not too bad. We'll happily take those. And then our expert picks, of course, in a year that was so crazy. This was not our best year, but still coming out with a winning record. 103, 92, and 1. That is 52.8% against the spread. Obviously, you're always trying to get above that 52.5% threshold. That's always our goal at the Gridiron Expert. We went 27-18 in our bowl game picks. That's 60% against the spread in our bowl games. We went 7-3 in our best bets during the bowl season. That means we have 6 straight years of 60% or better in bowl game picks in 6 straight winning seasons against the spread here at the Gridiron Expert. 6 straight winning seasons. We have never had a season go below 52.5%. Never had it, and I don't think we ever will. If we can survive a year like this with all the unpredictability and never knowing what you're going to get from a team on a given Saturday, then I think we've weathered that storm and we're going to bounce back in an even bigger way in 2025. So another very successful year on our expert picks, very successful year in predictions as a whole. We get so much hate and so much flack for these picks that we do every year, and every year I just kind of sit back and I relax and I say, just wait. It's easy to criticize now in the middle of June, middle of July, but we're going to get it right by the time the season's over. I can promise you that. Not every game, not every team, but over 80% of the time, we can guarantee you that. So, what a year, what a year, what a year. This was a fantastic college football season. In this ever-changing landscape of college football with NIL and the expanded playoff and the transfer portal and all these things that we're having to deal with that are greatly impacting the sport, whether it's for better or for worse, on your opinion, this was one of the most entertaining seasons I've ever seen. The parity was unmatched. A lot of people contribute that parity to the transfer portal and to NIL. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But the parity was unmatched. Any team could lose on any given Saturday. No team was safe. We saw a fantastic 12-team playoff with a handful of fantastic matchups and big-time upsets along the way. This, for me, as of right now, takes the top spot as the best/wildest college football season I have ever experienced. But every time I say that, somehow, some way, college football finds a way to one-up itself, to do better than it was before. Maybe 2025 will provide that. And, of course, the 2025 season starts for us right now. So, guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Again, the season may be over, but it's not over here at our channel. We have tons more college football content coming your way this week. Next week, we're giving you nonstop Super Bowl coverage between the Chiefs and the Eagles. Some people aren't very excited about that, but we're still going to be providing you coverage for that all week long next week. And then again, college football content year-round right here on the Gridiron Expert. So the season never, ever ends. Do not miss out on your football fix here at our channel. Like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below, including the expert picks, including the gridironexpert.com. Tons of exclusive content on all of those sites, including the channel, to help you get through this off season. We want you to check it out. We want you to become a member of our GE Nation. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.